Hello everybody and welcome back to 10 Minute Reviews. I'm Jason.
I'm Amy.
That was Freya, and we're back with today's episode. And today we are going to talk about a book. It's kind of what we do. This time we're talking about a bigger book by a much bigger name author and a amazing book that you absolutely have to read if you are a fan of the horror genre or even movies, because they made a movie of it as well. We're going to talk about Stephen King's Needful Things. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. We have a bunch of reviews coming out all the time on books. And Stephen King's Needful Things. I mean, there's not a whole lot that could be said that hasn't been said already. The book itself is absolutely fantastic. It's a bit Faustian, which which there's nothing wrong with that. It's pretty much impossible at this point to write a book that does not have plot points that have already been done. It's
right.
just, you just can't. It's just based on how well you write it. And Stephen King, this one is one of his best books.
Absolutely.
And probably one of the best movie adaptations of a book ever made as well. So if you are a fan of the horror genre, you absolutely must read Needful Things. If you haven't read it or even heard about it before, well, this is one of the biggest fans. I've read it quite a while ago, but she's a huge fan of the book, so she's going to tell you all about it.
Needful Things is definitely an introspective jump into what people will do to attain the things that they think that they need.
It was that one time I needed $20.
No. It's set in the usual Derry, Maine, where a lot of Stephen King's books are placed, and it centers around a new shop that opens up in town called Needful Things. And at first it's just a curiosity,
It's like a curio shop, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of random looking things.
Kind of like your closet. It's a pretty cool shop. It's actually the kind of shop that we would walk past it as we're walking down the street, assuming we're out in public, and we would look in the window and be like, okay, we're going in there.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool.
And instead of, it comes with the typical, oh, I like that, how much is it? And instead of money, he wants you to do him a favor.
Yeah, let's make a deal.
And it seems like
Minor, little
just
stuff
a
at first.
minor little favor, like throw mud on some sheets, or can't recall another one, but make phone calls or whatever. And it all seems to be small little things that escalate and escalate and escalate and end up tearing this town apart. And it just goes to show how deeply we will go for the things we think we want or need.
In a way, it actually reminds me of a short story I read a while back. I'm just going to throw this in here before she goes on a little bit more about the book. The short story, it was set back in like the early 1900s. Some office worker owned his own office, maybe like an accountant or something. He worked by himself. And he gets a note dropped through the mail slot of his door, and it just has a name. So he checks the newspapers and goes to the library, looks up this name, and when he checks the newspapers the next day, he sees this name. The person had just died of, he'd been in the hospital for cancer, hospice care, whatever. So he dies, and the guy's like, well, that's interesting. And then the next day, like $500 gets dropped through his mail slot. Then a week later, another name. And he goes and looks it up. Same thing happens. The guy dies of a terminal illness and that he's had for a long time. $500 drops to the slot. This happens 2 or 3 times, and then he gets a name dropped through the slot, and he goes to the library and he looks up this person, and it's some business owner, perfectly healthy, fairly young. Doesn't have a terminal illness or anything, and the guy's like, well, how am I going to get my money? So he goes and breaks into the guy's house, and he waits for him, and then he hits him over the head and kills him. And the next day, a letter drops through, envelope drops through the mail slot with $2,000 and a note that says, how do you like your new job?
Oh.
Escalates. What would you do?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything at first, except
Right.
take money.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Needful Things sort of reminded me of a little bit. Well, I read the story after I read Needful Things, but
Absolutely.
it's kind of, the little things that just kind of escalate up. And if I recall correctly from the book, those little things also kind of intertwine with other little things. Throwing the and this isn't from the book, just an example, but throwing the mud on the sheets, you throw some mud on somebody's sheets. Well, maybe that was the final thing to make them just snap because they've had splattered onto their sheets for the last month, and they go brain the neighborhood kid with a brick that they thought splattered the mud on the sheets. Those little things kind of connected with each other, and that helped the escalation go.
Yeah. And it was all just innocuous things, a baseball card that this kid wanted, and this photograph of Elvis, and sunglasses, and all of these things that people form these deep emotional attachments to that just make them completely lose their minds when they think that their prized possessions are threatened. And it's just the things that people will do to protect the things that they need.
Or to get what they want.
Yeah, because they know that if they don't complete this deed, they don't do this favor, then they don't get to keep their item that they want. And it's, oh, you did this favor for me, but in order to keep it, you've got to do this now. And, oh, you really like that, so you got to do this for me now.
Yeah, it's like some spy book where they get this foreign agent to give them the most innocuous piece of information that's not classified in any way, shape, or form. But once they do, now they got their hooks in you. Like, well, if we let it be known that you gave us this information that you shouldn't have, so now you're going to give us this other information that you really shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how Needful Things goes. And it literally brings the town to its knees.
Absolutely.
In typical Stephen King fashion. I mean, brings the town to its knees, and then from there, it just decimates it further.
And then you get a recurring character, Sheriff Alan Pangborn, that drives the evil out of town that you're pretty sure is the devil. And it was said that he's always had a shop, and there's always things for sale. And maybe he'll be coming to a town near you.
Might have wandered into that shop once or twice.
Yeah.
So, definitely, if you guys are fans of the horror genre, if you saw the movie, you got to read the book. The book is actually better.
Yes.
And otherwise, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Stay tuned for our next episode, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye now.